I'd very much like to welcome you to Trinity College. When I say I'd like to welcome you, in these days of renewed horror, I'm recollecting that almost exactly a year ago, myself and my colleagues in Academics of Palestine, who, with the MPhil in Racist Ethnicity and Conflict, are hosting this talk. Well, for Open Day about a year ago, we welcomed people to Trinity College. We stood outside front gate with a banner. The banner was printed up by my friend Baz. Thanks, Baz. And the banner... Everyone knows Baz. And the banner read, "Trinity College is complicit in genocide." Well, a year on, and Trinity College is still complicit in genocide. It's less so than before, thanks to the efforts of students and staff. It has changed some suppliers, though not all of it. It has divested from some Israeli companies, and I recognise that this is not nothing. But on the main business of university, Trinity remains wedded to the Israeli research institutes and the institutes of higher education that are active participants in the genocide. We're still complicit in genocide. This may change, but in the meantime, welcome to Trinity. At the same time, there is, and it's important to recognise, another side to college. And that's the fact that myself and my colleagues have been given the freedom to criticise it. And this, as we see the repression that's taking place in the US, in the UK and Europe, this is also not nothing. So when we organised this talk, I'm very happy and pleased to say that Francesca Albanese has been treated like any other honoured guest of this college. When we organised the talk, we were given the go-ahead for it. We contacted the school and comms office, who said, "Oh, how do you want us to promote it? And also hope to make it." They didn't need to promote it because our friends in Sadaka did such an amazing job of publicity, as, well, we can all see. We also contacted the security, and the response of the security was, "Oh, thanks for giving us a heads up." And after the Farrago in UCL, they contacted us and said, "Oh, do you need us to put on any more security to make sure this goes ahead?" And this isn't nothing. These ordinary responses to our honoured guest are, in these days of repression, quite extraordinary. And I'm truly grateful to college for not, like the Freie University of Berlin, for not, like UCL and many others, for not applying the Palestinian exception to freedom of speech and to academic freedom. We'll get back to fighting them tomorrow, but in the meantime, welcome to Trinity College. So I said that Francesca Albanese is just like any other honoured guest, but of course she is far more. For the last year and a half, she has been a beacon of integrity and decency, constantly calling governments to account for their failures to uphold their own laws in relation to Israel-Palestine, constantly demanding that international human rights law and Palestinian rights be protected in international fora. Beyond her many media appearances, she's actually leaving after this to appear on prime time. Beyond her talks with civil servants and governments, beyond her lectures and talks, she is a leading legal scholar in the field, publishing widely on the legal situation in Israel-Palestine, including her 2020 book, Palestinian Refugees in International Law. In 2022, she was appointed the United Nations Special Rapporteur on the occupied Palestinian territories, making report after report on the situation, including her March 2024 report, Anatomy of a Genocide, and the October 24 report, Genocide as Colonial Erasure, which was delivered to the United Nations General Assembly. So we are truly honoured to have her here today. She said she'll speak for about 30 minutes, which will be followed by a short questions and long answer session. And so,
no doubt, no doubt.
Can I all please welcome Francesca Albanese. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Oh my God, the expectations seem to be very high. Good evening, everyone. And first of all, allow me to thank you, those who have made it possible for me to be here tonight. The Department of Sociology of Trinity College, and in particular, the Master in Race, Ethnicity and Conflict, the group of academics for Palestine, thank you for existing, and Professor David Landy, with whom I have the pleasure to share the stage tonight, and of course, Sadaka and Dimon Mihan, in particular, for having me here. I join you here after a day that has begun, as some of you might have heard, with exhaustion. It's the exhaustion of 6 months of genocide. And 500 people killed in 48 hours and counting. 200 children in 48 hours. And it's also the exhaustion at the narrative that the media globally has espoused and which has palpably led us to this current malaise. I hope Ireland would be an island of exception in this respect, but no. It is my third visit to this country during my 3 years as a special rapporteur, and I admit that this particular visit has struck me for where Ireland finds itself, the disconnect between the people and the rest, and the current discourse regarding Palestine, but also for what looks more and more Ireland in the face of a lawless world, which requires strong, principled leaders who seem to be more and more a rare commodity in our hemisphere. Ireland has been a beacon of light on the Palestinian question for so long, not least the Palestinians themselves. Few in Europe and the West have intimately understood the Palestinian struggle and stood as tall as the Irish have. So to be confronted with the questions I received this morning from your national broadcaster, starting the discourse with what the Israeli army has to say, and then what the American Jewish Committee, what does it have to do with you? Instead of the facts, the nude and crude facts and their qualifications under international law, because this is what I can talk about. This is what I know, and this is what I've been screaming out of my lungs for 3 years, in fact. So starting the day like this has puzzled me. I found myself, and I think that there is quite, is it okay? Can you hear me? Yeah. There is quite, so there, what's it?
You can put it somewhere. It should help.
Okay, can you hear me? Okay, can you hear me? Yes. Okay. So I've had some experience with unbearable media questions, and I show some restraint. Today I couldn't. I forgot my manners. I stormed out of the studio. That's bad. Is the lady who found me in search for oxygen here? No, because it's true. No, she's not here. Well, so it's true what I'm saying. So I stormed out of the studio in search for oxygen. And I was telling to myself, not in Ireland, not here, please. So you see, the media plays a critical function in setting the framework within which the people broadly understand the Palestine question. And if the media offers the wrong framework, leaving the context out, for example, starting from October 7, which it was brutal. Of course it was brutal. I've condemned the crimes against Israeli civilians. I've cried for what has been done to Israeli civilians, because I don't see Israelis. I see people. I don't see Palestinians. I see people. Doesn't matter who they are. Doesn't matter which God they adore. Doesn't matter. But if we keep on using the wrong words, calling it a war, when really, where is the army against which the strongest army in the region, backed by the largest military power in the world, is fighting? If this goes unchecked, this appears to be a serious concern for the direction in which your beloved and my beloved Ireland is heading. The interview I had today proved to be, I'm sure the journalist is regretting so much. Hello, Gavin. The interview I had today proved to me that Israel seems to have succeeded in shifting the overturned window on what is normal vis-à-vis Palestine, vis-à-vis modern warfare, and vis-à-vis the reasonable actions of ordinary people. With every question average Western journalists pose, every news story they share or don't share, and every person they give a platform to, checked or unchecked, the media is creating the framework within which we all understand the events that devastate all of us with any iota of compassion and humanity. It was, however, refreshing to end the day, before then ending it with you, but however, continuing the day with my meeting with your incredible president, Mr. President Michael Higgins. Our meeting felt like an embracing of humanity, the coming together of two people able to feel a common human compassion for the situation, who have been attacked for the stances we have taken, and through that two people able to have honest conversations about the position we all find ourselves in. And we agree that what is unfolding against the Palestinians is genocide. Genocide is not defined by personal opinions or by personal perceptions. It's not defined by the means used to exterminate a people, to destroy a people. And to understand genocide, and this is something I realize because the more I talk, the more I see the genocide happening, the more I read, the more it makes sense. Genocide is the destruction of a people. You do to a people what you would do to a person to suck the life out of him or her. You can have the body still there breathing and still having killed the person inside. This is a genocide inflicted on a people. And genocide is defined legally as a crime. It's defined by Article 2 of the Genocide Convention, which stipulates that genocide is any act directed against members of a given group, national, ethnic, racial, or religious, with intent to destroy the group as such. So it's that as such that makes a difference, which makes the difference between, for example, the crime of extermination, the crime of mass murder, and the destruction of a people as such. So what are the acts of genocide? Acts of killing members of the group as such, creating conditions of life calculated to destroy the group as such, and or inflicting severe bodily or mental harm, preventing birth or transferring children from the group as such. And if you take the perspective of the group as such, you understand what genocide is. It's when a group is slated for destruction. So people consume themselves looking for what is intent with the magnifier. And no, this is a crime where you do not need a magnifier. Take a deep breath, take a step back, and look at what Israel is doing. The totality of Israel's crimes against the totality of the people as such doesn't matter. Young, newborn, old, on a wheelchair, while baking a cake, while sleeping in their bed, while waving a flag, while playing violin, while trying to feed their kids or their cats their normal food. So this example doesn't apply. You know where I'm going. Palestinians have been targeted as such. So the reason why, the intent is not the reason why. This is not the intent. Who cares about the reason why? The moment there is a determination to destroy the people as such, and the signal, what triggers the obligation under the Genocide Convention is the revelation of that determination, of that intent. And, the jurisprudence says that in order to find that genocide has occurred or is about to occur, you look at the words spoken, but the words spoken are not enough to have the crime of genocide. They are enough to sound the alarm that there might be incitement to genocide. And when this happens, this is when there is the trigger for the obligations of the Genocide Convention to kick in. So it's obligation to prevent genocide, to stop genocide when one has failed to prevent, and then to punish it. The punishment happens when there has been a judgment of a tribunal, which happens after a while. And this is why the convention wisely says prevent first and foremost. So frankly, you shouldn't care at all, and so your leaders, whether the court has ruled already, has concluded already whether it was or not genocide, because the court 14 months ago recognized the plausible risk of genocide on the 26th of January 2024. And from that moment, no member state can say, oh, I didn't know. I didn't think it was genocide. I don't care if you are already accountable. They are already accountable. Genocide. Don't applaud if you don't know what it means, because there is more work to do for you. Genocide is not an act, it's a process. And precursor acts of the genocide, the acts of substitution of the population, the elimination of the population, are forcible transfers, mass incarceration, including of children, apartheid, the expansion of settlements. All these is not new to Palestine. This is, as Ras Sigal said, this Israeli professor on the 12th of October wrote a powerful essay, Gaza, a textbook case of genocide. Why? Because as a genocide scholar, he knows what the precursor acts of a genocide are, and what had been doing to the Palestinians were already acts that might one day lead to an escalation. Genocide in its legal meaning, destruction for destruction. And all this, over the years, has been ignored or normalized at best, confused under an avalanche of sanitized words and behind a curtain of equivocations and both-sidism. The peace process, it takes time, the parties have to negotiate, it's both of them, it's not just one, it takes two to tango, and whatever. The framework that we should use is a set of settler colonialism, because whatever Israel has been doing to the land that remains of Palestine after having taken 78% of what was Palestine is the hallmark of settler colonialism, taking the land, the resources, and pushing the people native to the land out. This has been the vehicle to dispossess and to continue to dismember Palestine as a land and as a people. And this is unlawful. It must end. And it's not just me saying that. It's not just hundreds of legal experts saying that over the years. Because of course, member states needed a decision of the court. So let's look at what they are doing now that the International Court of Justice has said that the occupation that Israel maintains, not just the military troops, all the settlements and the control of the natural resources, borders, etc. All of this is unlawful. It amounts by whatever the court has said is, what the court has said is, other than in word, an annexation. It's an act of aggression. So it is to end. It has led to the application of a regime of apartheid and racial segregation. It's in the advisory opinion of the International Court of Justice. The court has said that the realization of the right of self-determination, which is the right of a people to exist as a people, which is the ultimate goal, the annihilation of which is the ultimate goal of a genocide in a legal perspective. But the court has said that the right of self-determination of the Palestinians is not up for negotiation. What negotiation between the occupier and the occupied? What do they have to negotiate? And it has said the occupation must end totally and unconditionally, and Israel is to withdraw the troops, dismantle the settlement and the control of natural resources, make reparations to the Palestinians for these 57 years of dispossession and forced displacement, and facilitate the return of those who were forcibly displaced, 350,000 people in 1967 and descendants, of course. And, the interesting part is that once again, if it was not clear enough, the court has reminded member states of their obligation not to recognize as lawful the legality of the occupation, and not the consequences of such an illegality, and not to aid and assist in any possible ways with such an illegal endeavor. So now that the court has said it, what are member states doing? They continue to trade with Israel. They continue to have banks, pension funds, supply chains, profiting over the spoils of Palestine and its children. And this is awful. So, yet another point on which President Higgins and I agreed. And I love the way he refers to his absolutely sound and inspiring legal reasoning as, quote, normative excursions, end of quote. But normative excursions are critically important if we are to understand that in a world of power and interests, what is in our interest is the alignment of our actions and our way of being with a set of core human values. And our power, is to choose to do precisely that, to realign our interests with our values. So the President referenced to the work he did with the late former Dutch Prime Minister, Dries van Acht, a man who, after being a fervent and strenuous defender of Israel no matter what, had the humility to shift his position on the situation of Palestine a full 180 degrees after seeing it with his own eyes. Because Palestine is a wound that, when seen, cannot be unseen anymore. So after that, Dries van Acht decided to dedicate the rest of his life, post his time in office, to doing everything in his power to shifting the awareness among the political elites and the general public around Palestine. So just weeks ago in the Netherlands, I had the honor to be awarded the inaugural Dries van Acht Award in a beautiful and sobering ceremony. So your president, having shared with me the statement he and van Acht issued back in 2005, 20 years ago, following a visit to the occupied territories, made me think that it's appropriate to share some of their most poignant observations to set for us the desperately missing context to the present genocide. You should really read this statement, as we did, and it's amazing. Back then, just months after Israel's so-called disengagement from the Gaza Strip, they warned that though the disengagement might have raised hopes that peace was within reach, quote, in light of the facts they witnessed on the ground, they regretted to report that hope was unjustified. The removal of the settlers from Gaza does not constitute a withdrawal in any meaningful sense, end of quote. How prescient that has proven. They noted also the humiliation to which Palestinians were daily subjected, experiencing themselves the glass and the garbage thrown upon ordinary Palestinians and their visitors, as the Palestinians were struggling to live their ordinary lives in the occupied West Bank, occupied city of Hebron. They bore witness to the way in which the grotesque apartheid wall that cuts its way through the West Bank was built to obstruct movement, family reunification, connection with olive trees and the future, hope, dreams of the Palestinian people, separating families from each other and the people from their land. They observed, too, that quote, the international community has not brought an end to these policies of the government of Israel, thus sustaining a situation of lawlessness and impunity, end of quote, that there must be more determined action to achieve accountability from Israel and enforce compliance with international law. Already 20 years ago, these two men deemed constructive dialogue, in between quotes, between the European Union and Israel, because they deemed that constructive dialogue between the European Union and Israel had yielded no tangible results. They called for the activation of the human rights clause of the EU-Israel Association Agreement, and among many other things, endorsed the then newly established Palestinian-initiated call for boycotts, divestment, and sanctions. Perhaps had the governments of Europe heeded any of their 10 urgent calls for action then, we might have averted the current catastrophe. Instead, as I and so many others have said, that inaction, that impunity, and that sustained state of illegality has enabled and continues to enable the current genocide, with our governments being all increasingly complicit. While we have, as global movement, continued calling for the exact same thing, then President Higgins and late Dries Van Acht, can you see what Israel has done? Now, and I presume I'm largely among friends, and I do not mind at all if this is not the case. Everyone is welcome and encouraged to share criticism. We are all devastated by the renewed acceleration of Israel's genocide against the Palestinian people. But such a sad state of affairs must not deter us from seeking change. As politicians, leaders, and stewards of international law, there are many who have influence on the duty to act decisively. The mechanism of legal accountability exists. They depend on your humanity and political will to defend and use them. And to the civil society, committed academics, students, young people, ordinary people from all walks of life who have not sat idle in the face of this grotesque injustice, you are the antibody of a healthy rule of law system, and for that, I thank you. I urge us not to despair in a way that is akin to Clockwork Orange. You have seen Clockwork Orange, huh? Yeah. We cannot allow the live-streamed genocide and its associated apathy to desensitize us to that violence, normalize the oppression, dissociate us from its moral failure, legitimize the legitimate. We have to speak accurately and coherently in calling this what it is. It's a genocide, the end result of a protracted unlawful occupation, apartheid, and aiming to take the land and the resources of the people without the people. We need to act accordingly. We must resist framing the situation as a chronic humanitarian crisis to be managed rather than a political question to be redressed in accordance with international law. We cannot allow this to clockwork us into a conditioned acceptance of the unthinkable. The normalization that from now on, wars are destined to be genocidal, and it's already happening. And my thoughts go to Lebanon. We act in solidarity from the comfort of our homes while we enjoy our families, friends, workplaces, universities, and communities. Understand we have neither the time nor the choice to tire or be hopeless. As an African-American educator, Mariam Kaba says, hope doesn't preclude feeling sadness or frustration or anger or any other emotion that makes total sense. Hope, though, isn't an emotion. Hope is not optimism. Hope is a discipline. And it's discipline that we must practice together, standing in solidarity. Drawing from my Latin ancestors, the word solidarity comes from the Latin solidum, which means entire sum, unity, togetherness. Solidarity as a value and a social value cannot be passive. Togetherness cannot be passive. It is an active noun that must mirror collective feeling and collective action. Together we need to think, and together we must act toward a common goal, which today for Palestine means end the genocide, end the occupation, and then end apartheid. And may our rallying call be, let it be justice. Thank you.